Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Today is Friday, November the 1st, and we are wrapping up this 5-part series on the Puppy Buyer's Guide. We've talked about quite a bit over the last several days in terms of what do we need to do in order to get us a puppy that we can be satisfied with. Okay. We talked about finding a breeder. We talked about looking at the facility. We talked about looking at the pedigree, seeing are there titles in the pedigree. What are the achievements of the dog? What about genetic health tests? We talked about the contract, or what the expectations should be in the contract, making sure that you read it thoroughly, that you can agree to it, holding yourself accountable for doing your part of what the contract outlines, and then double checking what the breeder is supposed to do and making sure that the breeder maintains their end of what's in the contract. We talked about actually going to pick the puppy out. What type of characteristics, personality, temperament are you looking for in the puppy that you're picking, according to your personal specific needs? You can't worry about what somebody else needs in a dog. You got to think about you. It's you purchasing a dog. You're purchasing a dog for a reason, and you got to make sure that that dog is going to meet your needs. So once again, it's really personal and really focused on you. We talked about picking a puppy out, and we talked about some of the preparations that you need to do during that period of time, that 2-week period. You pick your puppy out, and now you have a few weeks you're waiting to go pick your puppy up. Okay, so that's probably like a 2-week window, maybe 3 weeks, depending on when you pick your puppy up. Please make sure that you take time to tap the screen and also share the live. It helps with our algorithm. And remember that this is to be in a part of an ebook. So we're taking these, the 5-part lecture series, we're going to take it and we're going to put it into an ebook that's going to have 6 chapters to it that will help anybody, no matter what breed you are concerned with. It will help you be able to pick out the best puppy for you. So this is going to be an ebook going into 2025. We'll see it released in January or February of 2025. Make sure that you tap the screen, be a part of the process, ask questions if you have questions. As we go into doing the ebook, we're going to have a section toward the back where we answer frequent questions. So if you have a question about what you need to know as it relates to picking a puppy out, then make sure that you put that question in the chat so that we can answer it either now or later on as we go into developing that ebook this month. So we talked about all of those things, and we're at the last section or last part of the series of the Puppy Buyer's Guide. This is part 5. We're talking about transitioning the puppy to the new home. Now what? You got your puppy. All right? What are you going to do? You already have, you decided where you're going to put your puppy at, where the puppy's going to sleep. You've already decided about the initial, and listen to my words, the initial dog food or diet that your puppy is going to be on. All of that is already established. Okay, so you get your puppy. Remember we talked about the vet visit, the initial vet visit, right? If you go back to your contract and you look at the contract, remember we said that any professional breeder should provide you with a contract. In that contract, you got to go back and see, is it a clause that tells you when you need to take that puppy to the vet when you get it? In our contract, you have 72 hours. Okay? to get your puppy to a licensed veterinarian to be looked over. If you do not comply with this part of the contract, you, by not complying with it, you void all of the protections I have given you in the contract. Remember, the contract is supposed to protect the person that's selling, and it's also supposed to protect the buyer. So it's supposed to be a balanced contract. So I put certain things in the contract to protect you. And when you don't fulfill your obligations of 72-hour vet visit, then you void the terms of the contract, your protections in the contract, okay? So you want to be mindful of that. So you take your puppy, first vet visit, the vet said everything is clear, puppy is looking good, clean bill of health. You are reaching back out to the breeder and saying, hey, we got a thumbs up at our vet visit. Of course, depending on what age you get the puppy, in most cases, you have 1 shot done, maybe 2. We recommend 4 shots. So let's say you get 2 shots done from the breeder. You got 2 more shots to do. And these are important. Those vaccinations are important because remember, at some point, you're going to take your puppy out. Either for a walk, or you're going around another dog, or maybe you live in an area where there's some dogs running loose. They're going to come to the fence, breathe on your dog, smell, and you don't want your dog to catch anything. Okay? So we talk about boarding and training, but we don't recommend any boarding or training at outside facilities or places like that or coming into contact with other dogs until a minimum of 18 weeks. Okay? Because what did we say earlier? We said that we are going to vaccinate the dog at what age? 6 weeks? 8 weeks? 12 weeks? 16 weeks. We said 2 weeks after the 16-week vaccination, we consider the dog fully vaccinated, which is 18 weeks. So if you know that, you cannot put this dog at a minimum risk to after 18 weeks. That means absolutely no dog parks, no boarding facilities. When you go into the vet, you're dealing with a puppy that's not that big. Don't put that puppy down and let that puppy run off in the receptionist area, in the lobby. Because there's other dogs that done walked in there and you don't know what them dogs got. So you keep that dog close to you. All right? We talk about boarding and training after 18 weeks after the dog is fully vaccinated. We talk about boarding and training after 18 weeks after the dog is fully vaccinated. We talk about boarding and training after 18 weeks after the dog is fully vaccinated. We talk about boarding and training after 18 weeks after the dog is fully vaccinated. If a dog can get kennel cough from another dog that's 20 feet away, they can get kennel cough. And that is a respiratory infection. I have not seen a dog die from it. I've heard of some cases, but I have not, and I worked in the veterinarian field, I've never seen a dog die from kennel cough. Okay. It can be treated. There's a few things it can be treated with. But you don't want the dog to get it because it's just unnecessary health issues, unnecessary vet bill, etc. So take precaution with this puppy in that from the time you get it, particular to that 18 weeks. And then even beyond that, because you're still dealing with a puppy, and there's certain things the puppy does not understand in terms of what it should put in his mouth, in terms of what it shouldn't. And there's a lot of people that have accidents with these puppies because they just are not supervising the puppy and they're not mindful of what they're giving the puppy. I'll give you an example. This wasn't a puppy. This was I think this dog was maybe a year old. And we had a lady that came into the clinic and she brought into the clinic a Shih Tzu. The Shih Tzu was in the bathroom, went in the garbage can. She had some weave that she had took out of her hair It was in the trash can. The dog ate some of that weave. When that weave got enlarged in the intestines of the dog and it quit moving, it literally started to kill that piece of intestines. So what we had to do was go in to that, pull the intestines out, and we had to cut out so much of that intestines to pull that out, and we had to tie it back together. So that dog has less intestines than it should because of that incident. Cannot give these puppies access to any and everything and think everything's going to be all right. If she would have caught that earlier, we probably could have given the dog something to make it past that, and it wouldn't have stopped and killed that part of the intestines, okay? But she didn't know. In a lot of cases, people do know, but they just figure, okay, well, it ate this, it's going to pass, and then they're sitting there waiting on it to pass it, and they don't know what's happening in the inside of that dog, that it stopped. Live restricted for some audience. Okay, that's cool. Live. Okay. I don't know what that's about. It's throwing up some warning signs from TikTok, but we're going to continue. And if I need to come back and redo this, I will. So, boarded training part. When we talk about training, you got to make an assessment as to what type of training you need as an individual. Okay? There are some basic things that you need, no matter who you are, no matter what type of dog you have. You need to be able to call that dog, and that dog stop on a dime and come to you. You need to be able to tell a dog to leave it when a dog is about to get into something that they shouldn't get into. And let me explain to you why. Let's say your dog is running and your dog is chasing a cat or a rat or squirrel, whatever it is. And as they are chasing this, whatever it is, ball, it don't make no difference what it is. They're going out into the street and there's a car coming. If you have your dog trained to come to you when you call it, to stop whatever it's doing and come to you immediately, you can literally stop that dog from getting hit by that car. If you don't, it's very likely you're going to have a dog that's going to get hurt. Okay? So that's one of the things you need to, that's something that you can practice on yourself, in your own spare time, getting a dog to come to you when you call. I'm not going to get into all the techniques to make that happen in a short period of time, but it does not take a lot of training. It does not take a lot of skill to get a dog to come to you when you call. Okay, remember, all training must be consistent. Okay, must be consistent. It must be fair, and it must make sense. Okay, so if you're going to be in a house, have a house dog, certainly you want to potty train the dog. Even if the dog is outside, you want to set up the dog for success to go use the bathroom in the area that you want them to use the bathroom. So if you got a big fenced in yard and you got family members that like to go out and they want to barbecue, you don't want poop all over the yard. You want to train that dog while it's young to go into a particular area of the yard and use the restroom. That way, when you take your 1 or 2 days that you're picking up, that you can go to that specific area and pick up, and you don't have to walk all over your big yard and worry about stepping in poop, okay? I'm a lawn man. I run a lawn service. I absolutely hate to go to somebody's yard and I'm cutting grass and there's poop everywhere, okay? Potty training, house training, two totally different things. Basic obedience, okay? The basic commands: sit, stay, come, walking on the lead, down. Those basic 5 or 6 commands, basic obedience that you're gonna you may need to train your dog on. Now, some people don't need that. As long as their dog can come when they tell them to come and leave it when they tell them, they're satisfied. It all depends on what your needs are as an individual owner. Is the dog being trained for some type of sport? And this is something that it took me a long time to understand. There's a difference between a sport dog, a show dog, and a personal protection dog. All three of these require different types of training that can overlap, but these are three different types of training. Is it a service dog for disability, for somebody that has a disability? Is it a disability, physical disability, or is it a psychological disability? Okay? Are you training because this person has PTSD and they need a companion dog? Are you training because this person has some type of neuropathy and they have problems falling, and when they bend down or something like that, they need a dog to be able to lean on? That's going to go right back to your purpose for buying a dog. If it's a person that has neuropathy and they need a dog for support, physical support, you're not going to go out and get a little small dog that they can't lean on. You're going to go get something big with weight that can help them, okay? So it all depends on what the purpose. It goes back to our first conversation that we had on Monday. Understanding why you getting a dog, because your understanding your purpose for getting a dog is going to follow you throughout the life of that dog. It's not going to change. It's going to follow you throughout the life of that dog. Socialization. Does the dog need socialization training with other human beings or with other animals? Okay. These are the different trainings. I would suggest that at some point during this 18-week period that you find somebody who can help you with the training, give you the guidance and the support that you need. Now, we talk about training with these dogs, and what people don't understand is that at some point the owner has to be engaged and hands-on. One of the challenges that we have in terms of training and understanding the model, understanding the science behind it, is that sometimes people think that they can send their dog to get trained and get their dog back and everything is all right. You are the owner. You got to learn how to handle that dog. Because oftentimes what happens is people spend a lot of money sending their dog off to get trained. They go and they look at the training and it looks perfect to them. The dog is doing everything that the trainer tells them to do. But then when they get the dog home, they can't get the dog to do that because the dog don't respect them. They haven't established respect, that relationship of respect with the dog. They don't know what to do when the dog makes a mistake, how to correct the dog in such a way that the dog get back where it needs to be at. Okay? So you got to work with that trainer. Don't just think you're going to send a dog off and that's it. Okay? What should the diet look like? What are the expectations? And I always say individualize your dog, because what I'm feeding my dog might not work for yours. Okay? There's a particular dog food that some of the breeders were using, and they said this particular brand of dog food has thrown our females' heat cycle off. They're not having a heat cycle during every 6 months like they should. And we noticed that this only changed when we started using this particular dog food. They had to leave that dog food alone and go to another dog food in order for those female cycles to be re-regulated and it come on right. Okay? So individualize. Everything is not for everybody. These dogs are just like human beings. There are certain medications, there are certain foods you can't eat. That's the reality. Some of us are lactose intolerant. We can't eat a bunch of ice cream, drink a bunch of milk. We have issues. Okay, well, the dogs are just like us. Okay? Just because you see one dog can eat this or do that, process this food properly, that don't mean every dog is going to be able to do that. There are certain dogs that are picky eaters. I know dogs that do not eat vegetables. They don't eat fruit. If you give them some meat and some fruit, or meat and vegetables, they're going to pick through it. Okay? If it's not blended up in there good, they're not going to eat it. So individualize your dietary plan for your dog. And you also want to develop a relationship with that vet. That vet needs to know you and know your dog when you come in. So when you're in the vet office, if there's any questions that comes up in your head, make sure that you ask your vet. If you have any concerns, make sure that you go over those concerns with your vet. I do want to caution you about something because I've worked with a lot of veterinarians over the years. And sometimes you run into a veterinarian that they want to get outside of the scope of their practice as a veterinarian, okay? And I'm saying that because most veterinarians do not specialize in behavior issues with dogs. They're not breed-specific veterinarians, meaning that they deal with a lot of different breeds. They may not know what the temperament is supposed to be for a specific breed because that's not part of their training, okay? Dietary issues with most veterinarians is not a part of their training. They're not nutritionists. So sometimes they give you bad information, okay? Many of them have not did any type of behavior modification with dogs. So sometimes they give you bad information as it relates to behavior modification or training. Be careful about that. They are medical professionals. They're not behavioral scientists. They're not dietitians. And you want to be careful taking everything that they say about behavior issues and dietary issues hook, line, and sinker. Sometimes they have very little information, accurate information about that. All right, so we talked about that. Let's talk a little bit about genetic health tests. Okay, remember when we first started our series on Monday, we talked about the pedigree, we talked about the parents, we talked about genetic health tests. There are certain things that are hereditary that can be passed down to the offspring, and the mother or father may or may not have it as active in their gene pool. Might not be active. Okay, that don't mean that the offspring can't get it. So there are certain genetic health tests that are relevant to every breed. Okay, let me give you an example. I deal with the Rottweiler. I also deal with the Cane Corso. Those are two medium to large size breed dog, herding, protection breed dogs. And they can have a tendency to have what is called genetic hip and elbow dysplasia. Okay. We typically test for that before we breed him. Okay. If you're going to have a dog that's going to do sports, intense exercise, at some point those type of genetic health tests need to be done because those tests are very relevant to sport, to breeding. You don't want to breed a dog and pass those genetic defects on to the offspring. Because if you do that, then what you're doing is you're just producing a bigger problem in the breed. So check and see, do you need to do genetic health tests? And when we talk about hips and elbows, I remember before I even learned about the science behind that, there was a guy here in my city that had a female that was 120 pounds. I don't know how long she was 120 pounds, but she was a 120-pound female Rottweiler. I think in my professional estimate as a professional now, she probably could have. I think in my professional estimate as a professional now, she probably could have been down. Probably could have been down 15 pounds, about 105 would have really helped her. But he had her jumping on and off the back of a truck. And one day, her hips went out. I mean, her whole back end just went out. She couldn't pick it up. She was dragging it. He went to the vet. The vet told him we could give her a shot. Gave her, obviously, a steroid shot that made her get back up. But then within about 3 or 4 weeks, he was back down. So he wound up putting the dog down. Very likely, that dog had genetic health issues in terms of her hips, having hip dysplasia. In addition to that, him having the extra weight on her did not help. In addition to her having the extra weight on her hopping on and off of that truck, which is taller than her back, did not help her. So she had more than likely 3 different things working against her. The genetic factor of hip dysplasia, which came from one of her parents through the bloodline. The environmental factor of him feeding her too much and getting her overweight, by my estimate about 15 pounds. That weighs heavy on the joints as she's trying to move with that weight over a period of time, months, years even. And then her hopping on and off the truck, which is another environmental thing. Environmental factors are controlled by the owner. Didn't have to have her that big. He didn't have to have her hopping on and off that truck. You can hurt a dog like that. That's why when we put out this buyer's guide, it's going to go into certain things. Like, we recommend that you don't take those small puppies that are not developed and let them hop on and off of stuff that's taller than their back. We don't recommend that you run them up and down stairs, okay? Because these joints, they need time to develop. The growth plates need time to develop. Some people are running out doing these crazy diets to try to put weight on a dog that does not need the additional weight on the dog. And the only thing you're doing is you're destroying the growth plates and you're destroying the joints of that dog. And by the time that dog gets 3 years old, it's having some serious health issues. That is within your hand. That's why you got to study the breed. You got to know what the weight should be and all this stuff. When we go to the show world, one of the things we do at about, there's a few things that you can do as it relates to this genetic health testing. Hips and elbows, we can do what is called a pin hip test, which is very scientific. It tells you how much of that ball is in there, very scientifically. That's like 3 pieces of the test. You can do that at a really young age, I think at about 7, 8 months, 9 months. There's also, when we deal with the Rockwellers, we can genetically help test the hips and elbows as early as 15 months. Not in the United States. We do the test in the United States, but when we send the x-ray results to the ADRK or the FCI, which is international, and then they grade them and they give us a scoring back. The foundation that does it in the United States is the OFA, or the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals. They do a lot of genetic health testing, including hips, elbows, dentition or teeth, and a lot of other stuff. So if you know that you're going to go in the show ring, if you know that you're going to be breeding or doing sport with the dog or doing some strenuous exercise like some of you all like to jog, and you got this dog with you and he may not have the genetic help to keep up and stay healthy, okay? That's why it's important. You have to consider all of this. We talked about this Monday. You have to consider all of this when you're going to buy a dog. Is the breeder doing genetic health tests? What does the results of that test look like? Do I need this? Is that something that I need? Is it something that I want? Is it something that I'm willing to pay extra for? Okay? I learned years ago, it is better to pay a little extra money on the front end than to get a dog that ain't right and have to pay the extra money on the back end and a bunch of unnecessary vet bills and having a dog that does not have a good quality of life because the dog is not genetically healthy. I don't mind paying that extra. I want a good dog. I want the best. If the dog is going to be with me 10, 12, 15 years, I want the best. You know? And I want to look at what the market is. We talked about that earlier. I want to look at what the market is, What do these dogs go for? What do they go for when their parents are health tested and titled and all of that? And I want to be fair to the person that's selling the dog. I'm going to be fair to myself, but I want the best. I don't want no dog that's, you know, I'm paying just a little bit for this dog and there's no guarantees because there's no type of testing anywhere. And I'm going to be satisfied with that. No, I'm not. I want the best. So this is really going to conclude our presentation for the day. I hope that I've said something that caused you to be able to have some skills and tools to pick the best breed that's for you, for the purpose that you have in your mind, and that you have some idea of what your responsibility is to that dog and what your expectation is out of both the dog and the person that produced the dog. In closing, I do want to say that we have Lollipop and Tina, our pendant line. Both of them are pregnant. They are probably going to give birth over the weekend. So if you kind of watch our page, make sure that you follow us. And if you're interested in a Rottweiler puppy, we're going to have 2 litters. We do have 2 Cane Corso females here. One of them I'm working with, doing some training and imprint. She's in the house now. She's 4 months old. I'll be coming live later on to do her final vaccination sometime today. I'll do that live. But that puppy is available, and you can always reach out to us. We have our phone number here on my shirt, and this is our profile picture. So you can always go to the profile picture, blow it up,